The courtroom fell silent as Nicholas Ashley's lawyer smirked, holding up a document that was supposed to humiliate me. "Your Honor," he said with barely concealed contempt. "Mrs. Ashley, excuse me, Ms. Gray now, claims she contributed significantly to the marriage. Yet our investigation shows she currently works as a barista and lives in a modest apartment in Brooklyn. Clearly, she's here for a payday she doesn't deserve." Laughter rippled through the courtroom. Nicholas leaned back in his chair, that same arrogant smile I'd endured for 8 years plastered across his face. His new girlfriend, Kalani Cortez, squeezed his hand and whispered something that made them both laugh. What none of them knew, what I'd kept hidden for 3 brutal months, would wipe those smiles off their faces forever. "My name is Bethany Gray, and this is the story of how I let them think I was nothing, so I could show them everything." Before we dive into this jaw-dropping story, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And if you love revenge stories with the most satisfying endings, hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Now, let's go back to where it all started. 3 months earlier, my world shattered in the most cliché way possible. I'd walked into Nicholas's office at his father's investment firm to surprise him with lunch. Instead, I found him with Kalani Cortez bent over his desk, her skirt hiked up, his hands tangled in her hair. They didn't even stop when I opened the door. That's what hurt the most. Not the cheating itself, but the fact that he didn't even care enough to be ashamed. "Bethany," he'd said, barely looking at me as he adjusted his tie. "We need to talk." I stood there, frozen, the takeout bags slipping from my hands. Kalani had smiled, actually smiled, as she walked past me. "Sorry," she'd said, in a tone that made it clear she wasn't sorry at all. That night, Nicholas came home late. He poured himself a scotch and sat across from me like we were in a business meeting. "I want a divorce," he said. "You've become boring, Beth. You don't challenge me anymore. Kalani gets my world in a way you never did." I sat there, feeling something inside me crack. For 8 years, I'd made myself smaller for this man. I'd hidden who I was, what I'd built, because I wanted him to love me for me. And he couldn't even do that. "What do you want?" I asked quietly. He leaned back, swirling his drink. "I'll be fair. You'll get a reasonable settlement. My lawyers will handle everything." "Reasonable," I repeated. He nodded. "You're a barista, Beth. Let's be realistic about your prospects." That's when I knew. I wouldn't tell him the truth. Not yet. You see, what Nicholas didn't know was that I wasn't just a barista. I was the founder and CEO of Gray Tech Solutions, one of the leading cybersecurity firms in the world, worth over $3 billion. I'd started it years before I met him, and I'd kept it secret because I wanted him to love me for who I was, not what I had. But what Nicholas didn't know was that I had been preparing for this moment without even realizing it. Every email, every bank transfer, every dollar I'd spent on our life together while he took credit for everything. I had documented it all. "I won't fight you on this," I said finally. "But I want what's fair." He laughed. Actually laughed. "Beth, be realistic. You brought nothing into this marriage. You'll get what you deserve." "Oh, I'll get what I deserve," I thought. "And so will you." I stood in my small Brooklyn apartment, the one I'd bought under an LLC the day I moved out, staring at my reflection. My lawyer, Giselle Becker, sat on the couch behind me, reviewing documents. "You sure you want to do this?" she asked. "We could settle. Take the penthouse, take a few million, and walk away." "No," I said firmly. "He needs to see exactly what he threw away." My phone buzzed. A text from Nicholas's lawyer, Zane Bird. "Final offer, $75,000 and 1-year health insurance. Take it or we'll see you in court and you'll get nothing." I showed it to Giselle. She grinned like a shark. "Let's destroy him," she said. But that night, alone in my apartment, I almost broke. I sat on my bathroom floor, hugging my knees, and cried for the first time since I'd caught them together. Not because I missed Nicholas, I didn't, but because for 8 years I'd watched myself disappear. I'd walked into rooms and felt invisible. I talked and no one listened. I'd achieved incredible things, and no one noticed. I'd made myself so small that even I had forgotten how big I really was. My assistant, Lawson Boyd, called. "Boss, you okay? Do you ever feel invisible?" I asked. "Every day before I met you," he said. "You taught me that invisible just means people aren't looking hard enough. Tomorrow you make them look." I was serving coffee at the shop when they walked in. Nicholas and Kalani. They didn't recognize me at first. I had my hair up, my green apron on, no makeup. I was just another minimum wage worker. "God! This neighborhood," Kalani said loudly, looking around with disdain. "I can't believe Beth actually lives around here. It's so depressing." Nicholas laughed. "What did you expect? She's a barista." They ordered 2 oat milk lattes extra hot, and I made them with a smile. "That'll be $12, I said. Nicholas barely glanced at me as he tapped his card. But Kalani looked closer. "Oh my God," she said. "Beth? Is that you?" I met her eyes. "It's Bethany." And yes, she grabbed Nicholas's arm. "Look, she works here. I mean, we knew she was a barista, but seeing it," she turned to me with exaggerated sympathy. "Sweetie, this must be so hard for you. Going from that beautiful penthouse to this." Nicholas looked uncomfortable but said nothing. "If you need help," Kalani continued, "you know, once the divorce is settled, I know some temp agencies." "I'm fine," I said calmly. "But thank you for your concern." She leaned in, lowering her voice. "Between us girls, you should take whatever Nicholas offers. Fighting him in court is just going to embarrass you." I handed them their lattes. "Have a nice day." After they left, my hands shook so badly I had to sit down. Little did they know, every insult only made my revenge sharper. My coworker, Georgia Saunders, squeezed my shoulder. Tomorrow, I confirmed. I woke up at 5 a.m. and put on my carefully chosen outfit. A simple black dress, modest heels, minimal jewelry. I looked exactly like what they expected. A struggling ex-wife, desperate and defeated. Lawson met me outside the courthouse. "The files are ready. Giselle has everything." "How do I look?" I asked. He smiled, like someone they're about to severely underestimate. Inside, I saw Nicholas and Kalani in the hallway. She was wearing a dress that cost more than most people's rent. He was in a $5,000 suit, one I'd actually paid for, though he didn't know it. They were laughing about something, completely relaxed. Zane Bird approached me, his briefcase swinging. "Ms. Gray, last chance. My client is willing to go up to $100,000. Final offer." "See you inside," I said. He shook his head. "You're making a mistake. And this, right here, is where the story truly begins. If you're still watching right now, you're exactly the kind of viewer I love. Subscribe so I can keep giving you thrilling stories. Hit that bell so you never miss what happens next." The courtroom filled. I sat at my table, hands folded, looking down, playing the part perfectly. Nicholas and Kalani sat across the aisle. I heard her whisper, "Look at her. She looks like she's about to cry." Nicholas whispered back, "This'll be over in an hour. Then we can grab lunch at that new place in Soho." They had no idea. Judge Morrison entered. "All rise." Zane Bird started his presentation with confidence. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward case. Mr. Ashley is a successful investment banker who supported his wife throughout their marriage. Ms. Gray, unfortunately, brought nothing to the union and now seeks to profit from my client's hard work." He pulled up a slide, my pay stubs from the coffee shop. "As you can see, Ms. Gray earns approximately $30,000 annually. She lives in a rent-controlled apartment and has minimal assets. She's requesting spousal support, division of property, and, quite frankly, it's a transparent money grab." Nicholas nodded, looking almost bored. Kalani squeezed his hand and smiled at me. That pitying smile. That "you poor, pathetic thing" smile. I smiled back. That's when she looked nervous. "Your Honor," Zane continued, "we're prepared to offer Ms. Gray $100,000 as a final settlement. Given her limited prospects and lack of contribution to the marriage, This is more than generous. Judge Morrison looked at me. Ms. Gray, would you like to respond? Giselle stood slowly, and I saw the predatory gleam in her eyes. Your Honor, my client has been extraordinarily patient with opposing counsel's theatrics. But I think it's time we corrected some fundamental misunderstandings about Ms. Gray's financial situation. Misunderstandings? Zane scoffed. We have all her financial documents. There's nothing to misunderstand. Ms. Gray, Giselle said, could you please state your full legal name for the record? I stood. Bethany Elizabeth Gray. And are you known professionally by any other names? Yes, I'm known professionally as B.E. Gray. I watched Nicholas's face. Confusion flickered across it. Your Honor, Giselle said, laying down a document. I'd like to submit these articles of incorporation for Gray Tech Solutions, filed 10 years ago. The founder and CEO is listed as B.E. Gray. The judge took the document. For those unfamiliar, Giselle continued, her voice ringing through the silent courtroom, Gray Tech Solutions is one of the leading cybersecurity firms in the world. They provide services to Fortune 500 companies and government agencies. The company was recently valued at $3.2 billion. Nicholas's face went white. Kalani's mouth fell open. Zane Bird looked like he'd been slapped. No, that can't, Nicholas stammered. Exhibit B, Giselle said, placing another document down, is Ms. Gray's actual financial disclosure. Her current net worth is approximately $2.4 billion, making her one of the wealthiest self-made women in America. The courtroom exploded. People were shouting. The judge banged her gavel. Order. But I kept my eyes on Nicholas. I watched him realize what he'd done. I watched him understand what he'd thrown away. Your Honor, Giselle continued over the chaos. What's particularly relevant is that Gray Tech was founded before Ms. Gray met Mr. Ashley. It's entirely premarital property. Mr. Ashley has no claim to it. Kalani turned to Nicholas, her face furious. You told me she was a nobody. You said she had nothing. I thought. Nicholas couldn't form words. However, Giselle said, during their marriage, Ms. Gray made substantial financial contributions. She purchased their Tribeca penthouse in cash, $15 million, though the deed was put in both names. She paid for renovations, $3 million. She funded their lifestyle while Mr. Ashley took credit for everything. Your Honor, Zane said desperately, we need a continuance. Denied, Judge Morrison said sharply. You made assumptions instead of doing your job. Continue, Ms. Becker. We're requesting return of all premarital assets, reimbursement for all expenses paid by Ms. Gray, and we're countersuing for emotional distress and defamation. This is insane, Nicholas shouted, standing up. Beth, why would you hide this from me? I finally spoke, my voice steady and cold. You never asked, Nicholas. In 8 years, you never once asked about my work, about my dreams. You assumed I was nothing, so that's what you saw. But I loved you. No, I cut him off. You loved feeling superior to me. You loved having someone who made you feel important. But you never actually saw me. Kalani stood up, her voice shrill. This is fraud. She lied to him for years. I never lied, I said, turning to her. I just stopped trying to convince people to see what they refused to look at. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Mr. Ashley, Ms. Cortez, sit down. Now. They sat. Your Honor, I said quietly. I don't want his money. I never did. I just want what's mine, and I want it on record that he didn't build me. He didn't support me. I succeeded in spite of him, not because of him. The judge nodded slowly. Mr. Bird, does your client have any response? Zane looked broken. Your Honor, we need time to review our position. You'll have until our next session. But let me be clear. She looked directly at Nicholas. The court takes a dim view of the financial bullying that was attempted here today. You tried to use your perceived power to force an unconscionable settlement. That's not justice. That's cruelty. She banged her gavel. Adjourned. As people filed out, Nicholas pushed through the crowd to reach me. Beth, please. Why? Why did you hide this? I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but pity. I wanted you to love me for who I was, I said. But you couldn't even do that. You couldn't love me when you thought I was ordinary. So how could you possibly have loved me if you'd known I was extraordinary? I can change. Nicholas, I said softly. I spent 8 years making myself smaller for you. I'm done shrinking. I'm done being invisible. Kalani appeared, her face twisted with rage. You're a liar and a fraud. You manipulated him. I turned to her, and something in my expression made her step back. I manipulated nothing, I said quietly. I just stopped begging people to see me. The right people see you from the start, Kalani. Remember that when he stops seeing you too. Her face went pale. As I walked out with Giselle, I heard them arguing behind us. Kalani's voice rising. Nicholas trying to explain. I didn't look back. Outside, Lawson was waiting. How do you feel? Free, I said. I feel free. The story broke everywhere. Secret billionaire reveals identity in divorce case was on every news site. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Nicholas's firm asked him to take a leave of absence. Several major clients pulled their accounts, uncomfortable working with someone who'd so spectacularly misjudged his own wife. Kalani dumped him after 3 days. Turns out she was only interested in the lifestyle, just like he'd been with me. The final court date was simple. Nicholas agreed to everything. I got the penthouse, full reimbursement, and something more valuable than money, vindication. As I signed the final papers, Nicholas approached me one last time. I'm sorry, he said. I really am. I was blind and arrogant and… Nicholas, I interrupted gently. I forgive you, not for you but for me, because I'm done carrying anger around. Is there any chance? Hope flickered in his eyes. No, I said firmly. There's not. But I hope you learn from this. I hope you learn to see people. Really see them. He nodded slowly and walked away. That night, I stood on the balcony of my new brownstone in Brooklyn, looking out at the city lights. My phone buzzed. A text from Lawson. Forbes cover confirmed. They're calling you the invisible billionaire. I smiled, because that's what I'd learned through all of this. You can't make someone see you if they're determined to look away. But you can refuse to stay invisible. You can choose to take up space, to be seen, to matter. And the people who deserve you, they'll see you clearly from the start. I'd spent 8 years being invisible in my own marriage. Never again. I was done hiding, done shrinking, done making myself small. From now on, the world would see me exactly as I was, brilliant, powerful, and completely unapologetic. And Nicholas? He'd spend the rest of his life knowing he'd held a diamond and thrown it away because he thought it was glass. That wasn't revenge. That was justice. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button. Have you ever felt invisible in your life? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. And subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories about people who got the last laugh. Remember, you're never too small to be seen. You're just in a room with people who refuse to look. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.